Good evening, folks. Thank you all for coming. My name is Jodi French, and some of you may know that I'm an attorney in private practice with offices in Brattleboro and Dover. But for tonight, I have the pleasure of being here in my role as the chair of the Windham Regional Commission Executive Board. And I want to thank all of you for coming to help us celebrate the 50th anniversary of Windham Regional Commission. I have been a commissioner for the town of Newfane since 2004 and chair of the board since 2012. But as you will be hearing later this evening, I'm one of the newbies with the commission. Some of our current staff, commissioners, and board members have more years of combined service, and it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces and new faces here. There are too many people that were instrumental in the foundation of the Windham Regional Commission to recognize everyone by name, even if I could have managed to pull that list together for tonight. But I would like to take a moment to thank the individuals responsible for arranging our celebration. And they are, in no particular order, Susan McMahon. She's our associate director and the staff person for our successful Brownfields program. Greg Brown, a Citizens Interest Commissioner from Dummerston and former executive director for the Chittenden Regional Commission. Pete Van Loan, the senior commissioner from Newfane, who may have been serving the Windham Regional Commission for longer than I've been alive, but I'm not sure, he's not saying. And Bill Schmidt, he was among the first of the Windham Regional Commissioners, and he served as our first executive director and was present for the birth of Act 250. Jim Matto, who was the predecessor of our current executive director, and he's only allegedly retired. And Lou Sorensen, a current commissioner and also a former executive director. These folks are well experienced in planning for the Windham Regional Commission, and tonight has been no exception. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I do want to also take a moment to specifically recognize some of our more notable guests. We have members of the Vermont Legislature, Representatives Ann Manwaring, Laura Sibilia, Mike Mrowicki, Tristan Tolino, Molly Burke, and Carolyn Partridge, who is also a member of our executive board. I'd also like to thank Senator Becca Balint and Senator Jeanette White for being here tonight. And we have two illustrious former speakers of the House, Tim O'Connor and Stephen Morse. And from Senator Leahy's office, we also have Chris Saunders present. For state agency representatives, we have Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Pat Moulton, present, and Secretary Sue Minter from the Agency of Transportation. And Jen Holler is also here. She is the Deputy Commissioner for the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, specifically for the Department of Housing and Community Development. We have representatives from some federal agencies present tonight. I'd like to thank John Michael Muse for coming from the USDA and Joe Ferrari from the EPA. And from the Vermont Association of Planning and Development Agencies, Jim Sullivan, the chair and executive director from the Bennington Regional Commission, and Thomas Kennedy, the executive director of the Southern Windsor County Regional Planning Commission. I'd like to thank all of those esteemed guests for being present tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to a former commissioner, our guest speaker, Governor Peter Shumlin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jodi. Thanks for the great job you're doing. We appreciate it. Give her a hand, and all the commissioners who are here, past, present, and future. And wow, 50 years. I'm so honored to be here. I brought my most powerful secretaries with me. I just want you to know that they're here. I've got my Secretary of Administration. If you need money, Justin Johnson's here. Justin, where are you? Give a wave. Great to have you here. We've also got our Secretary of Jobs, Pat Moulton, the stranger to Windham County. She's here. Thank you, Pat, for being here. And I'm my Secretary of Transportation here, and she's critical to getting around the state, doing a great job. Actually, so thank you, Sue. Her daughter, Ariel, is actually instructing it at SIT, here at SIT for Governor's Commission, right? Am I right about that? Is she here? Yeah, go Ariel. There's an example of a born and raised and staying in Vermont, right, Ariel? You're not going anywhere. Hey, come on, stop that stuff. Hey, I need the folks that made this place really happen because it's extraordinary to have them all in one place. As a commissioner, I remember Bill Schmidt. He got this off the ground. Bill, come on up. We need you up here with me. Just stand with me. Greg Brown came next. I remember him well. He had hair. Come on, Greg, we need you. Lou Sorensen was a dream team, part of the dream team here. Where's Lou? Is he here? Come on, get up here, Lou. And then Jim Mattow. I don't know if they let him in the place, but if they did, we need Jim up here. I already gave him a hug. Come on, Jim. And Chris, come on now. You're on the team now. There you are. Now listen, this is the dream team that has made 50 years. Aren't you all everything from day one to day today? Yeah, this is extraordinary. These beautiful human beings have led the Windham Regional Commission with all of our support. And I say, and I don't want to get Emily's daughter mad because she works for a different one, but I want to say this is the best RPC in the state of Vermont, and this is why. These folks behind me and all the commissioners that have made it happen. And it's kind of got some gender challenges, so we need Susan McMahon up here too as the assistant director, and is doing a great job. Where's Susan? Thank you. Thank you. And our next executive director is going to be a woman. That's for darn sure, because our time has come. Now listen, there's so much to brag about. As a former commissioner, I'm so proud of the work that we're doing, that we've done. And I think it's worth reflecting for just a second about how significant this commission in its 50 years has been to the quality of life, jobs, and to smart development in this county. We have some unusual challenges that other counties in Vermont have never faced. For example, we are the host of the only nuclear power plant in the state. Windham Regional Commission has played a critical role ensuring that we got it as right as we could, and now they've got the responsibility with many of the rest of us of making sure that we deliver on the promise of taking it away, which was promised when it was built 40-some years ago. So a huge role in Windham, in Vermont Yankee. They have played a critical role in assisting every single town in this county, planning services that have brought about smart planning for local communities. In fact, just this year, they've worked with 23 communities in Windham County, making sure that we get planning and hazard mitigation, which was not a part of the challenge when we started 50 years ago, but because of climate change, we all know is critical now. If we look at what they're doing with brownfields, this particular commission's brought in now over $3.5 million in brownfields grants. And when you look at projects like the Robertson Paper Company up in Bellows Falls, which is now being revitalized and used, R.S. Roberts, another site that could never have been used, Estee, Oregon, we know what's happened there. Extraordinary housing, could not have been used. The Red Clover Common, which is now going to be, the new Melrose Terrace. All of those brownfield sites where this commission got there early, got on the ball, got the loot, and got it right. That's huge for housing, it's huge for jobs. Transportation planning and infrastructure. Listen, we all know what we've been through. We had 3 major floods in the short time since I've been governor, Irene being the most memorable. Windham Regional worked in our time of crisis when we were losing businesses, losing farmland, losing homes, losing roads and bridges and culverts and infrastructure, losing covered bridges that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, ripped down Windham County's waterways. It was Windham Regional that worked as the regional entity, since we don't have regional government, and brought us all together not only to recover, but to plan for a climate change future in a responsible way. That's WRC in action. And finally, they have been absolutely a critical partner in downtown revitalization in this county, from Wilmington to Rockingham to Brattleboro and everywhere in between. And I think that's probably, frankly, of all of the things that we're talking about, the most tangible that we see every single day in our lives. Listen, what is happening with renewable energy, I just clipped the ribbon on Brattleboro Savings and Loan, I know Dan Yates is here, on Brattleboro Savings and Loans project that makes Brattleboro Savings and Loan the first bank in Vermont, probably America, to be entirely powered by solar panels. That's a big deal. We have in this state, since just the 4.5 years that I've had the privilege of being governor, we have 10 times the number of solar panels that we had when I became governor. That's a big deal. We are taking on climate change, energy efficiency with extraordinary speed, and other states will wish that they were we. We're growing jobs and economic opportunity, but at the heart of it is the belief that our downtowns will serve Rockingham, Brattleboro, Wilmington, every single downtown, Putney where I grew up and everywhere in between, as the center of our communities, as the place where we'll grow jobs, where we'll live, and most importantly, where we will make sure that we don't just hang out with our friends, but Vermont remains a state where neighbors reach out to strangers and we take care of each other because we understand each other, we live together, we play together in our vibrant downtowns. And I just want to put this sort of in perspective. That is not happening in the rest of America. It is not. You don't go to the farmer's market in downtown Brattleboro on a Saturday morning in most towns in America and see hundreds of farmers and food folks there selling local products that were grown in this state. You don't travel around the fringes of our towns and see fields of solar panel or windmills and other things that are going up. You don't go into our downtowns and see projects like the Brooks House, which in many towns in America would have been written off for dead, being the vibrant center of our rebirth because 4 or 5 folks who grew up here and believe in Vermont said we're going to work together with Windham Regional, with everybody else, to make jobs, economic development, education our future. You know, that's what it's all about. So there is a reason why we have the fourth lowest unemployment rate in America. There is a reason why we have the lowest unemployment rate this side of the Mississippi. There's a reason why we've added 16,000 jobs in this state in the short time that I've been governor. It's because of the Windham Regional Commission working with us to get it right. Listen, this I can tell you. I got the best job in politics, governor of Vermont. You can get things done. I got to move the World Cheese Award, from one small Vermont farm in Northeast Kingdom last year to another small Vermont farm in central Vermont this year. The French are so pissed off that they are suing us. This is true. They are suing our cheesemakers for using terms like brie and camembert because they keep losing those cheese awards. Listen, I see someone swigging a beer. Where's that beer made? Oh, jeez. Well, that's why it tastes so bad. But let me tell you about Vermont beer. If you had told me when I became governor 4.5 years ago, this is about our downtown revitalization, about our local farms, about our ag community, about planning and getting it right. If you told me that if you went to beerbuzz.com that rates local beers, and you would see Vermont beers on there at the first, second, third, and fourth best beers in the world, I would have said you're crazy. You're nuts. We don't really make that much beer in Vermont. Look at the new brewery down in Brattleboro. It's yet another example of getting it right in our downtowns. Listen, this is what's happening, and this is no joke. You probably know I'm one of the few governors in a long, long time that was born and raised in this state. So I've got some habits that Democrats don't usually have because I was born and raised here, like Stephen Morse and Timmy O'Connor and so many others that helped lead this state. And so I'm a deer hunter. Now, I know Democrats don't like hunting, but I'm a hunter. And what I love about hunting deer, and always have, is getting up early in the morning when it's dark. And you should all try this if you haven't done it. You don't have to take a gun, but you should go do it. And you go out into the woods, and you sit, and you wait, and you sit, and you wait, and you wait some more. And it gets lighter. The sun rises, and you wait some more. You wiggle your toes to try to keep them warm, and your fingers to try to keep them from freezing. And then the sun goes down, and you wait some more, and you go home. It's a great spiritual experience. So all I want to tell you is, if you had told me when I got inaugurated, when you all in Windham County had the extraordinary courage to make me governor, because without you I wouldn't be here. If you told me that we'd have thousands and thousands of people living in Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Massachusetts and Rhode Island, Michigan, New York, New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, and they're beer hunters. B-E-E-R, not D-E-R, beer hunters. And they get up when it's dark. They do. And they drive to Vermont. And they wait. It's true. And they'll hang out outside of Lawson's up in Waitsfield. Pretty soon they'll be coming to Brattleboro as soon as they figure it out it's there on High Street. They go to Hetty Topper, or they go to Hill Farmstead, whatever it is, these World Award-winning blogs that tell them where to go. And they wait till someone shows up. They got their little tin coffee cups in their hands. And then someone shows up, they get all excited. It's like seeing the buck coming over the ridge, you know. And they stand in line some more. And then they get like a 6-pack or a 4-pack or a case of this stuff. And they've arrived. They've found the promised land. And they see our mountains, and they drink a couple. And then they put this stuff in the trunks of their car. This is really true. And they drive 4, 5, 6 hours. And they'll put this stuff in their rigs, and they drive it back home. And they tell their friends they've got Vermont beer, and they bring to the promised land. And they sit around, and they all come over to their houses, and they drink it together. And it lifts up their miserable lives because they don't live in Vermont. That's what's happening. So all I can tell you is, it's all of the little things. It's all of the little things that make Windham Regional Commission make our lives the best in the world. Thank you, Windham Regional. Happy 50th.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to top the discussion about the beer, but I'll get Christian a moment to get everything started. Okay, so what I'm about to show you tonight is really the results of over a year of our committee working together, working with staff. You've already been introduced to the committee that worked with me on the 50th anniversary. And it wasn't just this video that you're about to see, but every commission meeting since January has had a different topic about Windham Regional Commission that we've been fortunate enough to have BCTV document for us. We put articles in their newsletter. We had Bill Schmidt talk about the origins of Windham Regional Commission. We had Lou Sorensen and Greg Brown, who are on opposite sides, talk about Act 200, our planning law, and what it was like back then. And we will continue through, I believe November with that. In a few minutes, you'll have Greg Brown talk about the history of the Windham Regional Commission. But tonight, I'm introducing our video. The video was initially going to document the history of the Windham Regional Commission, but you can imagine trying to do 50 years in a video. That would have been really long, and I don't think you all would have sat through it. So we were fortunate enough to hire Mondo Media Works, and they really got the essence of the Windham Regional Commission. And this video we're very proud of, and you're the first people who get to see it tonight, so it's unveiled. Will be used to show our towns what they can benefit from and how they can work with us. It's also going to be on our website, and it's also going to be on BCTV and probably some of our other local access TV stations. Next year, We're borrowing this from Bill Schmidt, who did this, I believe, in the 70s, Bill? They did a contest with the high schoolers to write an essay about what they saw for the future. Well, we're going to ask our high schools throughout the region what they see is happening in the next 50 years. So hopefully this video gets them thinking. So thank you to Mondo Media Works, who's not here tonight, but they did a great job with our video. The people who let us interview them, and thank you, interview them and film them as well. I hope you enjoy. The few that have seen it have found it pretty amazing that they were able to capture our spirit in 5 minutes.
In 1963, Vermont, for the first time, had more people than cows. In the 1950s, Vermont was very static. The economy wasn't going anywhere. But by the early 60s, change began to occur. Those who came not only were good in terms of bringing money into the state, but in some cases, all kinds of problems.
So we've got the Connecticut River bordering us on the east, then we've got the spine of the Green Mountains bordering us on our west. It's really fascinating that for a 920 square mile area, the geographic diversity and then also even just the diversity within the towns. Each town really does have its own unique identity based on its history and then just its own local self-governance. Each has its own personality.
The commission was formed to help towns look ahead, plan for the future. Planning including land use, housing, education, economic development, transportation, and even human resources.
We're sometimes difficult for people to get their heads around because we are a political subdivision, we are a government agency, yet we have no decision-making authority. Each town can appoint up to 2 commissioners, so those are volunteers. They are really foundational to everything that we do.
What's been most interesting to me is getting to know other towns, getting to know the differences, the different approaches the towns use.
Having the WRC in the middle of it kind of helps us understand what everybody else is doing, what works for somebody else. They've helped our planning commission write the town plan. Those things that we just wouldn't have the resources or the capacity here to do that.
We're almost planner therapists. We help, we listen, and an important part of our job is really listening.
Lately, a lot of our work has been with the implementation of different state programs at the local level.
The Transportation Committee was the first in the state to have a local aesthetic evaluation committee for the replacement of the I-91 bridge. It was nice to be allowed to give input.
As a funder of regional planning commissions, we may be the state, they may be the region, but we really need to be joined at the hip. And we have that with Windham Regional. We saw it in spades post-Irene. The regional planning commissions really were the eyes and ears, especially in those first few days.
A new thing that we're doing now in the wake of Irene is resilience planning. And so when you talk about something even like the replacement of the old arch bridge in Williamsville, you do have to ask the questions now about, does some of that old infrastructure need to function differently, because that wound up being the means of access to an entire part of the region that was cut off.
Where we're sitting right now at the New England Youth Theater, it's not just about their contamination. It's about turning a project around that would sit idle.
We personally actually eliminated the word planning from our name years ago, so we do more than just plan. We exist to support our towns, we exist to support our communities. I think everybody who works here has a real affection for this place. It's not just a job.
We're in the background on a lot of nonprofits as well as revitalization projects. It's so exciting to see a project transfer overnight. Normally, no one would take on projects like this.
I really appreciate, where I live. We choose to live here for what it offers, what it does for our soul, what it does for our families. One of the things that we're really looking at is how to bring more people to Southern Vermont. Those people can be employers, they can be employees, or tourists. Anyone who lives here knows it's not easy. There's not enough people left. We have to recognize the opportunities to work regionally. We have to find out ways that we can make that incremental change over time.
There is a significant percentage of the solution that really is just attitudinal, that we need to be more positive about this place where we live. So much of what we do is just getting people to talk to each other. And that's something I don't think can ever be automated or outsourced, just getting people to hear each other. So the Windham Regional Commission was the first regional planning commission established in the state. It was established in 1965. And we blazed the trail for all that followed.
So come up to me later and tell me if we hit the mark or not. We'd be curious. So Greg Brown, who was on the committee with us, and we said, who's a historian on this committee who'd write our history? Oh, who did it in the 25th? Well, Greg just happened to have been on our committee.
That was a very difficult act to follow. I think the video really did capture a great deal of what Windham Regional is all about. And frankly, I'm really jealous. For many, many years, I tried really hard to explain what the heck the Regional Planning Commission is and what does it do. They did it in 5.5 minutes. I couldn't possibly do that after 30 years in the business. So I'm really impressed with that. I think they did a great job. When we first started talking about the 50th anniversary, I tried really hard not to commit to writing anything because I'm supposed to be retired, and I've successfully avoided writing anything for about 8 years until this year. And then when the committee started to talk about, that we put together, that started to talk about a 50th anniversary, we need to write a history. We need to write a history. Okay. And then someone remembered, unfortunately, that I had done one for the 25th anniversary. And it's like, my God, that was 25 years ago. You're going to have to find somebody else to do 75th. I won't be here. So, start looking now. Collect notes, documents, whatever. When I did finally agree to do the project, I was really excited and really looking forward to it because I do enjoy. My previous career was professional history. I used to teach history, and I was an historian and all that sort of thing before I saw the light and became a planner. So I was really looking forward to this project. And when I really got into it, the more I delved into the research part of the project, looking at all of the things that Windham Regional had done and was doing, I was really amazed. I thought I had a pretty good understanding because I had worked for the commission for 7 years in the early 1980s. And I thought I really understood what regional commissions were about and what they do. Whoa, boy. Commissions now, and especially Windham Regional, do a lot more than they did when I was here. Pardon me. And in a way, that was really wonderful. On the other hand, it really made my job a lot more difficult because I had to sort out how do you talk about a 50-year history of an organization like this one in a reasonable number of pages. How do you summarize an organization like this one that touches so much of the fabric of this region, of the towns, of the individual communities within the towns? How do you do that? And it was a real challenge. As you look at this little thing, I hope you'll forgive me if in places the summaries start to look a little bit here, there. But like I said, I found it really challenging to try to pull it together and to tell the story of the commission. One of the things that I couldn't do well enough, I think, is tell the story of the commission through its people. You just saw people raising their hands, those folks who have been or are commissioners, those folks who have been or are on staff. There's no way that I could adequately tell the story of the commission through all those people, but they are the commission. They are making it work. They made it work. And they will make it work in the future, because we're leaving behind a legacy of progress, of accomplishment that I think a lot of folks will be proud to join, to be part of. So, in writing this history, I was looking with a little bit of an eye to the future too, trying to capture the story so that folks would understand, by God, this is a place where you want to work. The pay could be better someplace else, like in Chittenden County, where I used to work. But nevertheless, this is where you want to be. This is where things happen in Vermont. This is where leadership occurs. This is where innovation occurs in terms of planning and all the other services that regional commissions offer, right here. And so I think the commission has an enormous amount of accomplishment to be proud of and an enormous amount to look forward to in the future. I'm very proud to have been a part of it. Before I finish, I want to thank all the members of the 50th committee that you met, that were introduced to you, who stood up here with the governor. But I also want to thank the staff that worked with us to make this happen. Sue McMahon, where is Susan? There you are. It was easy for me. I wrote stuff down and gave it to her. And she and other folks on staff had to format it, had to try to make sense of what I wrote, had to edit what I wrote so that it came out as English. I mean, they did a great job. I also want to thank Kim Smith. Where's Kim? Kim Smith. There you are. Wave your hand in the air, Kim Smith. Kim was a very, very critical piece of the production of the booklet, the publication, and the assembly of all the parts. Without that, it would have come out as sort of typed pages. It didn't make a lot of sense. I also want to thank Jeff Nugent, because he's the guy who put the illustrations in that really, I think, tell the story more effectively in many cases than the words that I wrote, as did this tape. And I also want to, yay, Jeff. And I also want to thank Ashley Collins, who is the commission's administrative assistant. Anybody who's ever worked in an office with an administrative assistant knows that that person is really what makes the person who makes things happen. And Ashley is ours. God bless her, wherever she is. I hope you're here somewhere, Ashley. Pardon? Okay, well, anyway, we'll send her good luck. As with most authors, I will claim that any errors you find in this history are mine, no one else's. So if you find something that you're unhappy with, send me an email, call me, and for the 75th, we'll correct it. Thank you.
I'm Jeanette White, and I know I'm not on the program, but Chris said I could do this, and you should never, ever give a politician a microphone and an audience. People have talked about how great Windham Regional Commission is, and as opposed to all the other commissions in the state. When you talk about Windham Regional Commission in Montpelier, and I found this out years ago when I was on the state Community Development Board, and I find it now in the legislature. When you talk about Windham Regional Commission in Montpelier, people roll their eyes. Oh, those troublemakers. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Yes, Chris. So, and I know just pointing out one person isn't really right, but I'm going to do it anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a letter here that started this whole thing, this rebelliousness in southern Vermont that got it going with Bill Schmidt. This is a letter dated June 28, 1983, addressed to Bill Schmidt from Dean Davis. And I want to read this because I've been trying to figure out what to do with this letter, and this is one of the things to do with it. This, I believe, was on your retirement. I deeply regret that I cannot be present tonight at the commission meeting, which will pay you the tribute which you so justly deserve. My regret does not stem simply from my disappointment as an old friend for missing this happy occasion. It arises from something far more substantial than that. It is the strong feeling that I am so greatly in your debt, and the feeling that I must say so publicly. Bill, you are the person who first gave me an understanding of what was happening in Vermont and to Vermont, the dangers that our lovely state faced if the unplanned, unbridled, and dangerous rush of development, then beginning in southern Vermont, should continue unabated. It was your sound analysis of the situation at our first meeting and your continued help during those formative days which gave me the conviction that the problem must be solved if the unique quality of Vermont life was to be preserved. By this, I do not mean to include only the preservation of Vermont's natural physical beauty, for involved in the issue was the quality of public health, public education, the Vermont economy, and that special Vermont opportunity for community participation in public affairs that so many in Vermont cherish. Indeed, it involved so many of the important aspects of a Vermont lifestyle. Bill, as you know, many Vermonters take credit for formulating and implementing the decisions that led to the passage of Act 250 and Act 252 and other related environmental legislation, and very properly so. They are entitled to that credit, for the results could never have been achieved without the participation of hundreds, yes, thousands of Vermonters. In fact, one of the too often overlooked triumphs of this great effort was the triumph of statewide community participation in an important crusade. But your early perception of the nature of the problem, your determined and persistent efforts to make Vermonters understand and to act, and your continued support of the implementation of these acts after the legislation itself earned you a very special place in the history of this monumentous crusade. I shall remember it always with gratitude, and so will so many hundreds of Vermonters. Just wanted to share that.
So I think I'm the only person standing between you and cake and opening the doors to let more cool air come through. Just want to say, Tracy and I have been here a little less than 5 years, and just want to say thank you so much for bringing us here and for the hospitality you've shown us. Those of you who know my prior background, I was kind of a rolling stone, but I think we've landed in a really good place, and would love for this to be, you know, I don't know, I feel very comfortable like if this is the last stand. So, but love being here, love the place, and love the people. I didn't know that part of orientation was going to be a tropical storm and the closure of a nuclear power plant, but it was quite a baptism. Just some thoughts on where we're going with into the future. I think you're going to see us have even all the RPCs, this isn't just Windham Regional, have an even larger role in implementation of state policies and initiatives. And I know that's going to be a priority for the state. The problem is that sometimes town priorities may be considerably different than state or federal priorities. And we need to work with towns to frankly help them meet the new challenges of governance as government administration and virtually everything associated with town governance becomes more and more complicated. It's not sexy stuff, but frankly, I think to try to sustain what makes Vermont, Vermont, and what makes our towns, and what makes our government, we're going to have to figure out ways to do what I call self-determination through collaboration. And that's really been our history for the last 50 years. Sometimes, you know, to be more independent, you really do have to rely more on others. And I think part of what our goal is going to have to be is working with towns on more shared services. Sometimes it may be towns just partnering with one another. In other cases, we may need to explore the regionalization of services if that's what towns want us to do. But we're going to need to think outside the box. It's not just about saving money, frankly, it's about sometimes just getting better quality of service for what taxpayers are already putting in. So I really see us playing those two, I think ultimately they're complementary roles, but it's always been a tension within the commission, within all the regional planning commissions, and it's going to continue to be a tension within our own. I think also, I have to say, we have a number of folk from BDCC here tonight. Y'all raise your hands. And Laura was here somewhere. But our relationship with BDCC has probably never been closer. And I think that's a great thing. We have a lot of work to do to turn around some troubling demographic trends with an aging population, working age population leaving, wages declining. And if you look at the income of the region, it's actually a minority of the wage earning population, or the income earned in the region actually comes from wages and salaries. It actually comes from some other place. And so I've never been in a place, and I know never you've heard me say this before, and you're probably sick of hearing me say it, but it's sometimes challenging to have conversations here about economic development because we have so many people here who are not relying upon the local economy. And so we really need to have more conversations about that we all need to be vested in one another's well-being, especially when it comes to household income security. Sometimes it's easy to live here without really realizing the struggles that our neighbors face on a day-to-day basis. Another thing that I think we need to do is look beyond our own boundaries. We absolutely need to focus on development within the Windham region. But if you look at where our people commute to, it's a fairly even swap between the people who commute out of the region and the people who commute in. So we have a stake in the well-being of the economies of the surrounding region, including in our neighboring states. And if there's been one good thing that's come out of the economic challenges related to the Vermont Yankee closure, is that we're probably working more closely than we ever have before with our counterparts in New Hampshire and Mass. And we have a meeting next week, in fact, where we're going to cloister ourselves and figure out how to better pursue together bringing federal resources into this area that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. If you look at a lot of federal programs, when they talk about a region, they're talking multiple counties, multiple states. It's not the New England model. But so by collaborating with our neighboring regions, with our neighboring states, hopefully we'll be more competitive for resources out there. And for folk who don't know, and this is a serious issue, with the elimination of special appropriations for locales, everybody is kind of on the same playing field now. Everybody is competing nationally for federal grant programs and that kind of thing. And then once you get them, the administrative burden of doing that is much heavier too. Again, not sexy stuff, but if we want to bring more resources to invest locally, we're going to have to do a lot more collaboration. Jim Sullivan's here from Bennington. We've already done a lot of collaboration with our colleagues over in Bennington County. That's been a great relationship. We have a lot more in common than we do different. And so I think you're going to see a lot more just southern Vermont bi-regional initiatives. And who knows, eventually, them working with Berkshire County, and I know you've got an odd relationship with New York. Who knows what we might do here. But I really do, ultimately our future's in our own hands. We're not going to wait for Montpelier to do anything. We're going to drive the bus. We're going to try to turn these demographic trends around. I love our staff to death. They do an awesome job. If you look at our monthly work summaries, I look at them with awe and wonder why everybody's not just collapsed on their desks. I mean, they do this not out of a desire for paycheck. They do it out of a real love and care for this place. And so, yeah, give them a round of applause. Because they do, a lot of towns see them maybe for a few minutes or a few hours or a few times a year, but we're working with 27 different towns, and they work their butts off. We may not always deliver everything that everybody wants, but we're delivering a lot of good for the region and our towns. If you know me well enough, First thing you know, I'm wearing a tie, Tom Consolino, so you'd never seen me this dressed up before. It's really not as rare as you think, but it's more for, I do this more in Montpelier and recently DC. I have to say recently we've gotten a lot of state recognition for the good work of the commission. We've gotten more national recognition. And you know, at the foundation of everything that we do to this day is the volunteering of our commissioners. We couldn't do half of what we do if it wasn't for the work that especially goes on in the committees. If you think about the hours that these people put in unreimbursed every month, including the drive time to and from meetings, it's absolutely profound. So please commissioners, give yourselves a hand. Everybody, please give Commissioners current and past a big hand. I'm going to close with a little Wendell Berry, because it wouldn't be me talking to a group of people if I didn't talk about something that Wendell Berry said. So one of the things he says is, don't own so much clutter that you will be relieved to see your house catch fire. In my case, that's my office. If anybody who comes in, they go, frequently if people walk into my office, they go, my God, Chris. I don't like paper, but people insist on giving it to me. So, but I will make the time one day to dig through all that stuff. Post-Irene, this is a quote that really struck me, and it's something that I believe is you know, a lot of the commission's work ties into, frankly, how people relate to the land, and through the land, how they relate to one another. And it's this statement that do unto those downstream as you would have those upstream do unto you. And as we know, post-Irene, that's important both literally and figuratively. I'm going to close with this. A lot of what we do as a commission, ultimately we talk about land use, we talk about natural resources, we talk about economic development, but ultimately all of this is about the interrelationship of people. Ultimately, regional commissions are about people, the relationships between people, and conversations among people. And so Wendell Berry says this: a community is the mental and spiritual condition of knowing that the place is shared, and that the people who share the place define and limit the possibilities of each other's lives. It is the knowledge that people have of each other, their concern for each other, their trust in each other, the freedom with which they come and go among themselves. And I just thought that really sums up what the region really is. It's the place, but ultimately it's the people interacting in this place and how we support one another. And here's to another 50 years of loving and supporting one another.
We'd love to see former commissioners raise their hands, please. And current commissioners, everyone keep their hands up that was former. And current commissioners, we just like to see that. Thank you. Now, we know that, and that's really why we couldn't possibly, the former staff too. So there's quite a bit of people with history to the commission. Thank you.